morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun. Good, good, good morning. Good, good morning. Good morning, sun. How are you? Skies above. Gee, it's great to be alive and love. Good, good, good morning, sun.
And hello again. Is this working? Come on. Yep. Okay, sorry. There's always this lag that I always want to make sure audio is working so that I'm not sitting here talking to myself and you can't hear me. So I always want to check and make sure that the audio is streaming. And of course, there's like a 10-second delay. So with that, I already did one of these videos this morning, but it wasn't about like Business Central per se. So I've been wanting to do this one for a week, and I've been putting it off because I had other things to procrastinate with. But I think this one is pretty cool, and it is exploring a piece of the Business Central API functionality that I think is pretty clever. There really isn't quite the same functionality in the Dynamics GP world that I'm used to. There's something kind of similar, but it's implemented in a completely different way. But I think this particular feature is pretty clever, and it has to do with the Business Central API setup and how it uses templates. So I explored this and thought I'd share it because I think it is very interesting, and with the exception of the limitation, I'll call it, that we're about to see, I think it could be kind of valuable. So the background is this came from a Business Central forum post where I'm finding lots of interesting stuff. And sorry for the URL, but the topic is number series is not working through the API using the item template. And so what does this mean? I didn't know. I was like, okay, I see the word API, so let me go try to figure out what this is about. So with that, it involves a couple of different things related to the Business Central API. Primarily, it's directly related to the API setup feature, and it's kind of an unusual name for what it does. It's not like fundamentally setting up the API. It's an additional layer that operates on top of the API. And that API setup relies upon templates. And the question at hand relates to one field on a template, which is the number series. So I had to start at number series, move up to templates, and then figure out how to configure that in API setups. There's kind of a stack of things you need to learn here. But let's dive in. And Studio 4. Okay. So here we are. This is the forum post. And you'll see this was asked by someone named Lillian Du. We are using Power Automate to synchronize items from CRM to Business Central. We set up the item template in Business Central API setup. Items are created successfully with all of the preset item template fields, except for the number series. And I thought, okay, I don't know what half of that means, but let's learn. And so she goes on to say that items created through Power Automate take the number series of item instead of the item CRM. I'm assuming that's a separate number series. I also tried to create the item in Business Central directly using my item template, and the number series of item CRM was used perfectly. So when you go into the Business Central user interface, this template is working and it is using the desired number series. When you import an item via the Business Central API, for some reason the number series is not working based on the same way, at least based on the template. So any idea if I missed any configuration? Let's find out. Okay, so I looked at this, I read it 4 times to try to understand what the words are that I'm looking for. And I am going into a separate container where I am persisting this so that it doesn't get blown away by my morning Docker container rebuilds. And I forgot to test this, so let's see if it works. Okay, so let's start with number series. That's kind of the basis for this question. A little out of order in the exploratory. Oh, I need to update my program license. Bummer. Okay, so let's do number series. Let's search for that. We'll go into the number series page. Yes, I know. Okay. Let's try that again. Okay, so in number series, I'm doing my testing with the item, just like the forum post is discussing. So I created a few new number series for different types of item. So I called this item-fern, item-light, item part, item serve for furniture, lighting, parts, and service. And I'm prefixing these with a letter so I can tell which number series is being used. FLPS, all starting with 10,000. So I have those number series set up. Okay, now I've also set up templates. And I hadn't used these before, but they're pretty cool. So this is the templates list page. And here you can set up certain types of templates. It doesn't support all record types, but it does happen to support items. I know that because I was able to set these up. So you notice up at the top here, it says item template. These are a little weird. I couldn't quite tell how to see all the different item types that are supported, and it was a little confusing when I first set these up as to how to set them up properly, but I figured it out. I was able to create item templates, and they apply to item records only. I called this one furniture, and I said, I want to use, if this is a furniture item, I want to use the item-fern number series, right? So it should start with the letter F. And I'm going to use a base unit measure, pieces, type of inventory, and there are a couple other fields you can have in here, costing method, item category code, etc. Okay, so I've also done the same thing with lighting, parts, and service. So if I go into parts, let's say that these are in packs, just so that I have a few differences, and then service is by the hour, but each has its own number series. Okay, so concept is we first set up number series. Now we have these templates that help populate some of the field values when we create a new item. And in the Dynamics GP world, we might refer to this as being similar to the class ID. So when you create an item, you can assign a class ID, and that brings over essentially a template that pre-populates a whole bunch of fields, including the GL accounts related to that item, which is Business Central operates differently, but the template concept is similar to class IDs. Okay, so I set up those templates now. Now the third step in this setup process was going into API setup. And this is another window I think I had heard of it, but I never actually looked at it and figured out how it works. And so this I think is pretty unique and very interesting. This is saying, hey, Business Central APIs, when you receive a record that relates to this table, in this case I chose the item table, table number 27, or page ID 5470, the items API page. So I guess it might be when a record is, or a payload is submitted to the API items page. Yeah, that's what that looks like. And it relates to the items table. Then I want you to use this template. And in this case, the numbering here was really confusing because I don't see these template codes in the item setup. So, excuse me, in the template setup. So if I go back to template, I don't think I see, like I'll go to furniture. Yeah, I don't see item 0003, right? So this was kind of strange. Now we can probably do Control Alt F1. There we go. There we go. So the field is there, but it's not visible on the page. So it turns out this is item 6 for my furniture template. So that was one thing that was confusing. Normally in the UI, I just see furniture, but in the API setup page, for whatever reason, they expose this code. Now you see the description there, so that's how I was able to choose it. So this is when an item comes into the API, apply the furniture template, and you can filter as to when that's applied. So not every part is going to be, not every item is going to have the furniture template applied, right? What if it's a part that you're importing via the API? You don't want the furniture template applied to that. You want the part template. So you can then have conditions here. So when I click on that, I can say it wants only when it's an inventory item and when the item category code is furniture, then I want you to apply the furniture template. And Stefan comments, you should be able to see them in the configuration templates, I think. And that was something that confused me. So if I go here, I see templates, and it's a list of very user-friendly templates. And I recall looking at configuration templates. So let's look at that. Okay, so there you go. This confused me. What is the difference between templates and configuration templates? As far as I could tell, it's like exactly the same thing, but this exposes the code. It's like a different view of the same thing. So I recall going in here and being confused, like, whoa, wait a minute, these fields are different. I think the templates page is much more user-friendly. It's simpler. Maybe it doesn't expose as much, and there's a reason why you may need to go in here to say set some additional field values or tweak some things. But it looks like you can use templates or configuration templates. Stefan says the configuration templates are more dynamic and not that user-friendly. So I would agree with the not as user-friendly part. I found this confusing when I discovered this. And you notice here, I don't know if you can see it, config template header. I was like, what? This got me confused. So you can dig in here, but I think it's not necessary. I think if just for the purposes of basic learning, the templates page will suffice for the basic setup that I'm doing. If you need more functionality, it looks like you can get to it via configuration templates. So now that we have our number series and template set up and we're going into API setup, I have added an API setup record saying that for items that are type inventory with item category code furniture, I want you to apply the furniture template. Same thing with lighting, item category code lighting, and item category code parts. Now you could potentially use other field values instead of item category. Maybe it's base unit of measure, or maybe it's a comment that you pass in, something like that to serve as criteria for different templates to be applied. Okay, so Stefan says configuration templates are for all tables. Not every table has this user-friendly pages. Got it. Okay, so I noticed that under templates, I have items but no fixed assets. So maybe configuration templates would allow me to access additional or create additional templates for other tables. So, one moment. Okay, so now that we've set this up, let's give this a try. So I have previously made a video about how to use Postman and how to use the Postman environment variables, and have things default in. So I'm not going to cover that. I'm assuming you are a Postman black belt by now and expert. So what I have done is I have set up a post request to my BC Docker container, my companies, and I'm going to hit the items resource or endpoint. And so now I do need to first call this and make sure it's working. Am I using the right? Yep, I'm using my API 17 container. This takes a few seconds on the very first call. Fingers crossed. There we go. So my API 17 container is working. I'm going to move on to get companies, and that will populate my company ID environment variable. Now I can just get items to test. Looks good. I'm going to post a new item. And so in my body, I have some sample JSON, and I'm going to call this, this is entryway light fixture. So this is lighting. Okay, so I have my item category code, and let me just delete that. My item category code, oops. Okay, I have multiple tabs open. Let me just close all these other guys here. Close, close. Okay, so I now have a new item that I want to import. It's going to be inventory type, item category is lighting. Now, this is $123 and unit cost is $80. Okay, and I don't want to confuse things. Let me remove the tax group code. Okay, so now I'm going to submit this to the Business Central API. Okay, excellent. We have a new entryway light fixture. So let's go over to Business Central, and I'm going to go into my items, and yeah. Okay, so I have an entryway light fixture. How cool is that? Our API worked. We were able to submit that JSON payload. And there we go. Type inventory. It is a pack, item code lighting. But what's wrong here? The item number is 1009. It is not L10001 or 10005. So we have confirmed, as far as I could tell, we have confirmed the problem that Lillian has encountered and describes in this forum post, that when you import an item via the Business Central API, even though you have configured API set up to use a particular item template, and that item template does have a valid number series, the API is not applying the number series to this new item. Now, we can just do the sanity check. I don't even recall if we just did this already, but let's go to item. And I'm going to click new. And it asks me which template I want to use. I want to use lighting. Oh, okay. Let me delete these because I apparently have a duplicate in here. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's do new, lighting, and look at that. I have L10002. So we know the template works. We know that the number series is applied when you choose a template via the user interface, but we now also know that when the API brings in an item, it does not behave the same as the user interface, which is unfortunate. So here we have our entryway light fixture, but it is using the wrong number series. Now, I suppose we could go in here. Actually, I don't even think we can go in here and change the number series. Yeah. So I don't know the best way to apply a different number series, but anyway, if you're importing these, you're kind of stuck. So why is this? I thought, well, that's kind of strange. It's applying all the other fields from the template. We see pack, we see lighting, we see inventory, FIFO, resale, and whatever else we had in our template. What's going on? What's the reason for this? Okay, so we've confirmed the problem. Now, digging into this starts by looking at the code for the Business Central API page that is importing items. So in GitHub, under Microsoft AL App Extensions, we have a repository. And this, if you go into apps and then you click on W1, you'll notice an API v1, API v2 folder. Let's go into API v2, and these are the files related to the Business Central API. In this case, v2. App, source, and then pages. Okay, so we scroll down and we find API v2 items page.al. So you can pull it up here, or you can go all the way back to AL App Extensions, and you can actually download a zip file of all the files, which is what I did. And once you have that, then you can extract that one API v2 items page.al and drop it into Visual Studio Code. So voila, I have already done that. So I pulled in the API v2 items, and I've made a few fixes like adding API publisher, API group in order to get rid of errors. And you see we have an implicit with here. So I'm going to fix that with control period and qualify all. Okay. So now we have this API page. Well, when I look at number, no clues. It just says record number, caption number. It doesn't tell us why the number series was not applied. So with help from AJ, I posted this question on Twitter, and AJ very graciously pointed me to, if I scroll down, the on insert record trigger. So on insert record, it is getting field number, inventory cannot be changed on post request error. But then it says, okay, if it didn't error out, then go to graph collection management item code unit and call insert item. Okay, let's drill into that. So I'm going to press, here, let me screencast mode. Okay, so I'm going to press F12 to drill into that. So here we have, there's actually two of them. So this procedure will become obsolete. So that apparently is an older one that's going to be deprecated. Let's look at which parameters. We have two parameters, rec and temp field set. And okay, so I think, yeah, based on the signature, we're using the second one, which makes sense. So this is the graph collection management insert item procedure. It is referencing the graph management general tools and that code unit. And it's saying, okay, first we are going to insert an item. If the system ID is null, handle that. Or if it's present, then handle that. But the bottom line is it's saying item.insert true or true, true. Go for it. So the item is getting inserted. Okay, that's our first clue. Then it's saying, okay, get the table for this and call the graph management general tools process new record from API. Okay, not quite sure what all this means, but I'm going to press F12 again. That drills us into a new procedure, and we say, okay, configuration template header. There's something at least remotely familiar. We have selection rules, look familiar. Then we have template management, okay. And it says, if find template based on record fields, so look for a record in the, my interpretation is look for a record in the API setup that will tell us what template to use for these particular item field values that were defined. If you can't find anything, okay, exit, we're done. Because remember, the item has already been inserted at this point. So now, if there are rules, great, we found a template. Let's apply that template. So it talks about the inserted record ref, which I'm assuming is the item record. Let's go back to that. Yep, that's our rec. And then we have a temp field set, updated rec ref, config template header. So it's basically passing that in. I'm F12 on apply template. So now that we're really in the weeds, applying the template, and this I don't understand exactly what it's doing here, but update record with skip fields. So we know the item has been created. It grabbed the template that we wanted based on the configuration and API setup, and now it is updating that item record. Okay, so let's just drill into that one last time, see what it's doing. And it looks like it's looping through and up on, yeah, so it's essentially, looks like it's looping through the fields from the template and applying those template values. And I thought I was able to, oh, there we go. Okay, so update record with skip fields and then skip fields. So it's essentially updating the existing record. Yeah. I don't know why it's insert record with key fields, but config template set range, validate field value. So anyway, that's going into the weeds. Let's back out a little bit. And my interpretation based on this is the API is first inserting the record. It then looks for a template in API setup, and if it finds one, it will update field values on that existing item record. What it is not doing, and I can't read the code well enough to see exactly where the number series might be being excluded. I'm assuming that skip fields has something to do with it. What it is not doing, it is not changing the number of that item. And so it is not attempting to apply a different number series to that item. If it's inserting that item from the very beginning, well, it hasn't even looked up the template yet. So given that, it's just got to use the default inventory setup number series, which is the generic item number series. Now, when it goes back to apply that template later, it's not changing the number series. It's not changing the item number. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if that was an oversight, or maybe there is a technical reason why the number series was skipped. Maybe changing the number series via API is a nightmare. It wasn't easy for me to figure out or see how to do it even in the item page. I can change the number, but it isn't clear to me how to change the number series and get a new number. So the short answer is, yep, this appears to be accurate, that you cannot apply a number series from a template for items inserted via the BC API, at least for items. I don't know if that applies to customers or orders or invoices or any other transaction type. I need to test that. But in the case of items, unfortunately, it looks like you cannot choose a number series. And also, what's also unfortunate is you cannot send in a number series as part of the API insert, and which kind of makes sense. I think of that as an internal number to Business Central. You typically would not have an external caller specifying your number series. That's kind of a weird field to expose publicly. So you can submit a number with your API, your item insert. So let's give that a try. So let's call this entryway light fixture 2. And let's see if it lets me is that just no? Let's go to item, ID. Oh, it's number. It's the word number. Okay. And, oh, there we go. Number, not rec.no. Okay. So let's go over here to Postman in my post item. and I'm going to type number L11. Let's just make it 11,000. Okay, so now I'm going to send that, and it looks like that took. Now, of course, that's not terribly practical, because then that assumes your external caller is going to be managing these IDs, and you may not want that. Maybe they could manage it, but I wouldn't attempt to have the internal BC number series match these numbers that are being passed in the API. Just let the API calls manage its own number series, I guess. So not ideal. So although that does work, it would be nice to be able to call the number series. Let's go back here. Let me refresh. And if I scroll down, there is our L11,000 entryway light fixture. And the template was applied. We just specified that number. And yeah, and this is, apparently this number series does allow manual entry. Let's just see if I can get into it. Number series. And our generic item yeah, so it does allow manual numbers. So if you did not allow that, then I'm assuming that, actually let's test that. Let's turn off manual numbers for our item. And now let's exit out of here. Let's go back here and let's do fixture 3, and let's try to do L11,001, and let's save and send. There we go. So you may not enter numbers manually. So your item number series must allow manual number entry if you are expecting to send in the numbers via API. And so anyway, so I thought this was an interesting journey that started with this forum post asking a very good question. This person had found this one field exception that just didn't behave right. And I thought that was very interesting, and turns out it's just not supported, unfortunately. So you could potentially try to customize your API pages to support this. It would have to, I think it would have to go check your template, look up the number series, get the next number, and apply that down. But one problem I'm seeing is that the API page doesn't even have a field for series. So even if you went and grabbed the next number from your number series, you would not be setting the correct number series on the item record. It would still have a reference to the item number series, not lighting number series. So technically, I think that would be a mismatch. So it would be a little bit of work to modify this to support that functionality, which that's a bummer. But anyway, I thought this was a very interesting learning experience and journey, and it explored a lot of little nooks and crannies of the BC API infrastructure. So with that, hope that was interesting and helpful, and yeah, have a good day and go code something. Okay, talk to you later.
Good morning, son.